For me, I got a presentation to share with y'all today to help everyone get familiarized with the steps needed to be taken to become a web developer. And we're starting with web development specifically because this is an easy path into Web3. So, what is web development? At a high level overview, web development is the process of developing websites or web applications that are meant to be accessed through the internet in a web browser specifically. That's the main difference between web and mobile application development is the medium in which you're doing the development for. So as you'll see here in this slide, the two key differences between web and mobile development is when you're doing web development, you're creating applications meant to be used through a web browser, whereas on the mobile development end, you're intending for the application to be used on a mobile device, whether that be an iPhone or Android. But speaking of iPhone and Android, that is another one of the key differences. Although you can make applications in a variety of languages, there are languages best suited for web and mobile development specifically because the suite of tools surrounding that language and the community surrounding that language makes it more tailored to make development easier. So, for example, if you want to build an iOS application, you might want to write that in Swift or Objective-C, whereas if you're trying to build an Android application, you'll probably want to write that in Java or Kotlin. So if you're interested in both web and mobile development, it's recommended to start with web because it'll give you the foundation you need to wrap your mind, one, around development concepts and programming concepts, but also, you know, the web technologies are still utilized in mobile development. So having a good understanding of how the web works and making requests across the web for your website or application are still skills you'll need on both ends. So high level skills required to become a web developer. Obviously, you need programming skills. You need proficiency in at least one programming language. You know, for example, JavaScript, Python, or Ruby. Those are popular programming languages that have frameworks dedicated to building web application. Familiarity with web technologies, as I mentioned earlier, you'll still need to have an understanding of how the web works and how you make requests to retrieve information across the web or send requests in order to save information, and understanding of how your website may interact with the database, for instance. You also need a good understanding of design principles in order to make a nice looking, nicely designed application or website. You need problem solving skills in order to one, solve whatever problem your application is being built to as a solution for, but also to assist you in the development process. You may run into roadblocks or hiccups along the way and have to debug your code at various points. So you'll need to be able to work through those challenges along the way. And the sleeper skill that a lot of people don't consider is communication, because although you may be working primarily with your computer, you're still going to need to be able to interact and play well with others along the way and be a part of a cohesive team, potentially. So that's one of the stronger soft skills that people need to work on and look for in a good developer.
Seven streams. When you mention those programming languages, they provide a framework. Can you give people a little background on what a framework is and kind of define that a little bit for them?
Yeah. So, for instance, a framework is like a suite of tools that will help you along with the particular task that it's designed for. So when I mentioned earlier, Python, for instance, like that is a programming language in and of itself that you can use to write scripts and server-side logic. But they have a framework called Flask that is used specifically to build websites with Python. It gives you tools to make that process of building the website easier in that particular language.
Awesome.
Um, so yeah, from there we have the steps to become a web developer. You're going to want to choose a specialization, meaning are you going to focus primarily on front end development, meaning the design and look and feel of what you're interacting with as an end user for the application, or back end development, which is primarily the functionality that helps everything work together in your application, or full stack, meaning you want to work on both ends, not just the visual end, but also that server side logic piece to make sure that your application is executing the functionality you're looking for it to do. You'll also want to learn the basics of web development as a whole, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. As Mamadou mentioned, if you've heard me on the podcast before, I've mentioned that these are the core languages that you'll need to know to build interactive websites. HTML is going to be used to build the website itself, and CSS is going to be used to style it, and JavaScript will be added to provide it that interactive functionality that we all know and have come to expect from applications today. From there, you want to choose a technology stack to decide exactly what languages and what database and what server side logic you want to use for your application. So you can look at choosing your stack as defining your scope for the project in a sense. And we'll get into that a little bit later because I have another slide on how to choose a tech stack. And another thing you'll want to do is build a portfolio so that you can broadcast your skills and demonstrate and advertise your ability, for which becomes essentially very helpful for the last step, which is applying for jobs to actually utilize your skills full time. So as I mentioned, choosing a stack is a very important part of the process. When it comes to choosing a stack, the key components of a stack are the database, the server, the front end, and the back end that you're going to be using. So as it states here, is a tech stack is a combination of programming languages, frameworks, and tools used to build your application. And some of the popular stacks that are around currently are the LAMP stack, the MEAN stack, and the MERN stack. And in each one of these examples, you'll see like MongoDB is used as the database, Express.js is the server-side logic, along with Node.js. Express is used for the routing of your application, and then React is the front-end framework that is being used for this application in that particular example.
Quick question, Seven Streams.
Yep.
So oftentimes, right, in the world of development, we hear about what kind of stack developer are you? Like, are you a front end developer, back end developer, or full stack? From your personal experience, if you want to like give the people the game of like which angle they should try to attack this world from, like should they try to go the full stack developer route just to start off, or kind of focus on the specialization?
I mean, that's really personal preference. I feel like being full stack makes you more dangerous, because then you're able to take jobs across the spectrum. But there is value in being a specialist because your front end uh, implementation very well, and same thing with the back end. If you're a specialist in that way, someone looking for just that particular role, you being that expert will also give you a competitive advantage in a sense, because if someone has a job they're posting for backend job, and you being full stack, you could qualify for the job, but you may not get it over the person who specializes in backend, because their backend knowledge just may be stronger than yours. You know, so full stack can be looked at as being like a jack of all trades in a sense. Does that answer your question, Mamadou?
I had muted myself, but yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that leaves us with one of my final recommendations for becoming a web developer. A great way to build experience especially when you're getting started, but even if you're already an experienced developer, is contributing to open source projects. Essentially, an open source project is a project that's public on GitHub and available to everyone to contribute to. This is a great way to join a community of developers already working on something existing. Not only that, you can learn from them and learn to also adhere to different project standards, which is something that you would have to do on any professional project that you work on. So steps to contributing to open source project is, find a project that you're interested in. You can do that by searching on GitHub or GitLab just for public repositories and looking at their documentation for what the purpose of the project is, and just seeing if anything piques your interest at that point. Once you find something that you're passionate about and you may want to work on, read the documentation to see what the goal of the project is, and how it's designed, what the standards are for contributing, and that will give you all the necessary information to get started from there. You'll also be able to reach out to people that are maintaining the project by you'll see who the contributors are as well. So from there, once you pick your project and you know what you want to work on, you just want to start small by looking at they'll have a list of issues on GitHub that may be open, and you'll want to look through those to find one that you feel confident in tackling. In some cases, they'll tag them so like these are good early issues. They might be labeled beginner friendly or good first issues, for example. And then from there, you'll want to solve whatever the problem is in the issue and open a pull request so that other people can look at your code that is solving the problem and give you feedback. And if your code is up to the standards set for the project and the people who review it don't see any issues, you'll have contributed to open source at that point when they merge your code in. So it's definitely a process. You want to be patient and persistent, because there may be times where your pull request gets rejected and you may have to refactor your code, but just don't get discouraged and stick with it. And finally, a couple resources to really help people get started in the journey to become a developer. There's always YouTube University, but there's also Udemy and Coursera for looking for specific courses or free resources along the line to watch tutorials as well. And then Code Academy is one that I in particular recommend, not sponsored, but they will give you projects to work on. And not only that, but as you're learning the concepts, they force you to write the code to reinforce what you're learning along with the tutorial that they're giving you. So it's very helpful. Additionally, you can find other tutorials on other websites, or use W3 Schools as a resource, because they have a great website for documenting just different aspects of web development. So whether that's HTML tags that you want to learn more about, or what methods JavaScript has for working with their date object, or anything that you're interested in that falls in the realm of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, they'll have some form of documentation on for you to learn more about. And also Stack Overflow and GitHub are great resources for interacting with other developers, or posting questions to learn more in your journey as well. That is the end of this presentation.
Fire. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very informative.
Yeah, man.
You got it.
You got me inspired. I might have to become a developer after this, man. I'm gonna have to go find me an open source project or something.
Or something.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's not open source, because open source can be, a little scary for newcomers to just dive right into. Sometimes people can be shy. They don't want to, share their code out if they're not confident with it. Just start with a personal project, build a calculator, or something simple just to get the ball rolling.
Is there somewhere that people can go for like those simple ideas of like something to build out and like have a reference? Is that kind of what Udemy and Codecademy does, or what does that look like?
Yeah, Codecademy will definitely guide you through building certain projects. And as I mentioned, I think YouTube Academy is also probably the best resource for that, because people do post their whole tutorials for like, watch me build this app or so and so app, and you can either follow along, or sometimes they'll post the GitHub link for their code, so you can just look it over and either fork the repository to like make your own version, or the possibilities are endless at that point.
Okay. Okay.
Fire. Man, once again, this is the second edition of the developers course here on Block to Block with Sean of the Seven Streams. Thank you very much for, just making it the pathway towards becoming a web developer very straightforward, easy to understand, and accessible for newcomers who are interested in this space. So for all of you guys who are watching, definitely like, comment, subscribe, and share with all your loved ones. Follow Sean. Where should they follow you to connect more?
At Sean of the Seven Streams. I gotta post the at somewhere.
We'll post it in the description for you.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone keep in mind too, currently Web3, a lot of it is accessed via your web browser. So that's another reason why starting off as just a regular web developer before you get into all the smart contract logic and code is important.
Yeah. And, as we mentioned in the previous episode 32, there's roughly only a little over 23,000 open source web developers who even specialize in like blockchain related projects, right? But the job opportunities projection is by 2030, there should be like 1 million job openings related to this field. So don't think that you're late to the game. Like, if you stick with us, you stick with Sean the Seven Streams, you're going to have the foundation to start relatively early, get a jump of this. So you're in a position to really benefit from this new market opportunity. So thank you once again. This was very impactful. I'm super excited. I'm like, maybe I need to take a career shift myself.
Yeah, for real.